A little introduction here of our what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, so we're talking about aquatic wonders, and we're talking about scales, swim bladders, lateral lines, all the incredible adaptations that fish have. Just getting nerdy about fish in Nebraska. And I don't know if you know this, but there are more fish in Nebraska than the type that you can catch. So there's more than just bass and carp and crappie and all those incredible, and I like catching catfish. I don't know about
They're
you.
cool. They're all cool.
Super cool. But we're talking about those a bit today. We're also going to be talking about all the other ones we just don't hear about a lot. So if you came here, this is our disclaimer. If you came here to learn how to increase your angler skills, we have a ton of incredible resources for that, especially maybe Daryl Bauer at some point. I know he talks about that a lot. But tonight we're getting nerdy about fish diversity of Nebraska and fish in general. There's a lot more than we realize. We're going to learn about that tonight.
Yeah.
So,
and we have 4 experts on tonight that are joining us, all from Nebraska Game Parks Commission, but throughout different parts of the state. We have one in Alliance tonight that's on the road. So thank you for joining us there. But our 4 main people that we're talking to tonight are Daryl Bauer, which Amber kind of alluded to already. He is the Fisheries Outreach Program Manager. Thank you, Daryl. And then we have Brian Sweet for the Fish and Wildlife Program Manager, and he's also with Nebraska Game and Parks. We have Julie Fraley, who is the Fish Production Manager from Game and Parks. And then a little bit, I don't want to say oddball, sorry, Chris, I didn't mean it like that, but like he is our Invasive Species Program Manager, so aquatic invasive species. So his knowledge goes far beyond just invasives. So he is also going to be a great resource for us tonight as well. So,
and I think to get started and to get everyone, on the subject, I think we want to hear from our speakers. We want to hear from you. I want to hear, tell us what made you a fish nerd. How did you get into this field? So just a quick brief go around and let us know what hooked you there.
That's
I was going to do some fish puns. What
that's a good one.
And maybe a little bit about what you do now, just briefly if you can. So what made you a fish nerd? What hooked you on that? And what do you do now in the fish world?
Daryl, would you like to start?
Sure, I'll start. Boy, what hooked me? That's hard to say, because as long as I can remember, I've had a fascination with fish. I have early memories from, my family's on both sides hunted and fished. That's what we did together as a family. So I have early memories of going fishing that go way back, as early as I can remember. And I can remember looking in the water, various places, and seeing the fish swimming around down there and just being fascinated by them. So I've always loved to fish. Boy, somewhere in junior high school, I had already decided that fish biologist sounded like a really good job that I'd like to do someday. And so here I am. I've been with the Game Commission now for over 30 years. I've worked in fisheries division for all of those years. Been a fisheries biologist in a couple of our regional offices, worked in our research section and did some statewide walleye research for a while. And now I'm just kind of a PR and information education person. Tell people what we do in the fisheries division and tell people about the fish and fishing opportunities we have in Nebraska. I answer a lot of questions about fish and fishing.
Excellent. So he was from the fisheries biology world, and then he moved on to the best world, which is education.
That education
is what it sounds like. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
What's necessary? It's very important. Thank you, Daryl. Chris,
Sure.
You want to go up next?
Sure. Yeah, my path's a little bit unconventional. So, fishing, the more I grew up in Iowa, but I never knew what I wanted to do with my life. So I went on a college visit to South Dakota State, and I found they had this major called wildlife and fish. And I said, you can make money doing that? Not much money, but anyway.
Yeah, not a lot.
But so I just started taking classes and, just loved all of it. And actually my freshman year, I was the time to get like an internship. And I had to pick between working with ducks for the Fish and Wildlife Service and actually working with aquatic invasive species with the Iowa DNR. And Iowa said yes first, and say that's when I got hooked. So that's where
awesome.
Hooked, working with, my very first job was working with aquatic invasive species, zebra mussels, silver, the carp, a lot of the invasive weeds. And then I took a right turn I spent 6 years in Arizona working with threatened and endangered species. So it's mainly species from the Colorado Basin through the Grand Canyon and on the Gila River Basin. So I'm kind of the, I don't know if you kind of, no, you were right, kind of the oddball of the agency. So I handle invasive mussels and crayfish and snails and fish and weeds. So I kind of do it all. So I get a lot of weird. So, last year
And when I said oddball, I meant that with the utmost respect.
Absolutely.
Oh, I know. Yeah, no, I had to brush up on the jellyfish we have in Nebraska. So I have to, it's all the weird stuff. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Julie, would you like to go?
So I am the fish production manager down here at Rock Creek Fish Hatchery. I deal with rainbow trout and some warm water species. That's kind of my background for the Nebraska Game Parks. And how I got started was kind of didn't know what I wanted to do and was in Missouri, and they wanted to put me in the Missouri Department of Conservation. So I found a job at a hatchery, loved it, and then came here to Nebraska. But as a kid, I would always go to the fish hatchery and feed the fish. So I should have known then, but I didn't.
That's awesome. That's great.
That's cool.
It's a premonition. Great.
Right.
And Brian?
Yeah, I'm at the North Platte Hatchery. I kind of coordinate fish production at our various hatcheries, do the disease work for the state hatcheries and also the private hatcheries in the state. Work with Chris on some of his stuff, but how I got into it, my story is very similar to Daryl's. Grew up in families that hunted and fished, and if I wasn't hunting and fishing, I was working on ranches, and hatcheries, ranches kind of are a lot closer than most people probably realize. Got a job, and 30 some years later, I'm still here trying to do it. So
That's excellent. And now you're on Nature Nerd Night tonight, which is a pretty sweet place to be.
You've peaked.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a peak
Yeah.
for you tonight. Awesome.
So now that we got kind of like who our biologists are tonight and kind of what their backgrounds are, we want to talk a little bit about like Amber said, the fish that you shouldn't maybe hopefully catch, but the other fish that are out there that maybe we're not going to go looking for. So as nature nerds, we want to know more about the world of Nebraska fish. So let's start us off. If someone likes to say, like, how many species of fish do we have in Nebraska?
I can handle some of this if you like. The little bit of looking I've done, we've got 100-ish species of fish in Nebraska. I mean, there's somewhere around 100 of those. 85 are considered native. When you take it to the next level, the way we break things down in the Game and Parks Fisheries Division, we list 45 species as game fish, 15 as non-game fish. So that leaves 40 more. A lot of those are minnows and stuff that a lot of people don't know about. I'm sure there's stuff on there I don't know about, but that's kind of the breakdown on how the fish in Nebraska are.
So
excellent.
yeah, with all those species that we talked about, you said we have some native and some small minnows and stuff. What's like the diversity as far as where most of them are found in Nebraska, or is there a certain area where there's more diversity than the others?
Yeah, do we have hotspots? I know we have like birding hotspots of Nebraska, right? Do we have hotspots of diversity as far as some of the fish that we have here?
Well, I think it's interesting because you go across the whole state of Nebraska and how the ecosystem changes. I'm based in Lincoln. You go out of the streams are there, more warm water fish. You have your game fish, bluegill and bass. But I was just out on Fort Robinson on Soldier stream. And you have some of these really small bodied streams and cool water streams that has some of our really unique minnows like the pearl dace and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting about hotspots. Because especially going to the southeast part of the state, it's fairly urbanized and a lot of agriculture, and you finally come out west and you kind of see some of these more unique species that you may not, kind of by Lincoln or Omaha. So that
it kind of makes me think, Chris, when we're thinking about like land animals, it's what I feel like we spend a lot of time thinking about land animals. No offense to my fish nerds. But when I'm thinking about habitat across Nebraska, we think about like the length of the grass. Like we have our short grass prairie, our tall grass prairie, or we think about like the trees are different habitats. It sounds like as far as the water diversity of Nebraska, the water habitats, you're talking, there's gradient in temperatures, and that kind of indicates different fish species. Is that correct? And then also maybe flow. So it's like our lakes and our rivers and our streams. So are those the kind of factors that you think about when you kind of splice out different habitats for fish?
Oh, sure. And Daryl and Julie and Brian can, jump in too, I sample a lot of these lakes and streams for, invasive plants, and you see the gradient across the street too, where like, for instance, the species bladderwort, which I saw today on Fort Robinson State Park, is a very rare carnivorous aquatic plant that's only found in good water, good kind of natural water, systems, so on the sand hills and Fort Rob and stuff like that, that's where you only see that species. So kind of the same can happen to different fish, where fish adapt to certain locations, and that's where they're found. And I'm sure Daryl can talk about, and Brian and Julie, about how stuff are fragmented from when there were 100 years ago to now. So
when
that's
you
cool.
so when you see those fish in different areas, like I know it's different if there's a river dwelling fish versus a cool water stream fish, but all fish have certain characteristics that make them a fish. What are those characteristics?
Those adaptations.
Those adaptations that they have. Like, how would you describe to an alien that's definitely a fish and not a snake?
You guys are talking day one of ichthyology 101.
Yes,
Yes,
we are, but
I
our
am.
audience are fish nerds and they want to learn. A lot of them never got to take ichthyology. Even I didn't.
I didn't get a take. No.
So let's hear it. Let's hear it, Daryl.
Well, they're vertebrates, and they have adaptations for living in the water. So that would include things like gills, scales, fins.
Do they all have scales?
Nope, not all of them.
Why would a fish not have scales? What would that give them an advantage over other fish that do?
Well, I don't know. They're different. And we've got, catfish don't have scales. Scales for fish are protection. They also help with their movement through the water. The fish that don't have scales, just have different ways of accomplishing that. And catfish don't have scales. They may get more abrasions or injuries, but they heal fast, and they have a slime coat that helps them to protect. And they all have a slime coat, but especially the catfish, that's an important protection for them, especially since they don't have scales. But you're right, there's exceptions too. There's some that have more fins than others. There's some that rely on gills more than others. So yeah, that's general description, but there's lots of exceptions, lots of diversity.
Like a swim bladder, some of our species, some of the minnow, some of the species don't even have a swim bladder that keeps them buoyant in the water. So it's pretty unique.
That's like the balloon, right? That they can, on command, even like suck in air and then push the air out. That's totally on them.
Like a submarine.
Well, yeah, not so much on command, but they control their buoyancy with that. Some species can, burp, if you will, excess gas from their swim bladder, so they can change their buoyancy a lot faster than others. Others, it takes maybe hours or even days for them to change the gas capacity in their swim bladder. Darters are species that don't have swim bladders. And those are neat little fish that live in a lot of our streams, actually members of the perch family, but they don't have swim bladders. They live on the bottom of the stream, and they kind of dart around because, well, they don't have swim bladders. So they sit on the bottom until they want to move, and then they dart forward to the next spot where they sit on the bottom again.
That's really cool. I've seen those guys before, and they're adorable.
Are they?
Yeah. Question
They're
on
very colorful in spawning colors too. Some of our prettiest fish.
those like orange. Is it orange dotted or orange throated?
Johnny darter.
Orange throated, yep, is one of them. Iowa darter, Johnny darter. are our
Cool.
common or darter species.
So you're touching on some good stuff tonight for our fish adaptations, and it has me thinking, you know, we have, like Chris had mentioned, we have different habitats of Nebraska. We have streams, cold water streams, we have rivers, we have lakes, we have lots of different diversity, it seems like.
We do. Yeah.
I'm a fish that lives in a river versus a fish that lives in a lake. Would there be some different specific adaptations between like those habitats, for example, that would be advantageous for those fish? Brian, I see you nodding your head. Do you have any thoughts on that one? Julie? you
Yeah, I
can-
mean, there's fish adapt to the environment that they grew up in. I mean, sauger and walleye are two fish that a lot of people couldn't tell apart. If I held one up in each hand, most people, but if you look at the head of a sauger, they're built to be in current, to be pushed down at the bottom and held there, where walleye are more rounder because they're in more standing waters. So, and that's just one example of morphological differences based on the type of environment that you derived in, so to speak.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, anything else? Okay. What is next? Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, this one.
Yes, please.
Okay.
It's gonna get their creative juices flowing.
All right. So we all have I'm sure you all have a favorite fish species. I want you to think about that. Remember, I asked you earlier if you would like to.
She's using her educator voice.
I asked you earlier per your last email. If you would like to talk about what your favorite fish species want to do Nebraska?
Yeah.
In Nebraska,
Let's do
what
it.
your favorite fish species is and what's like a cool adaptation that it has that makes it so neat for you. Julie, how about you go first?
I have a couple, I guess. I don't know. And the sad thing is I can't remember if it's an orange-sided or orange-spotted little sunfish. I mean, they're tiny. You don't necessarily catch them or anything like that. They're just cool and they're beautiful and they're vibrant and they're in small lakes. I mean, they're tiny. They don't get big like a good panfish. And then little creek chubs that we have here in Rock Creek, because when you pick them up, they squeak.
That's
Are you
adorable.
serious?
Yeah, you
Really?
can catch them. I've caught them just inadvertently fishing the stream or the creek every once in a while, and you'll catch one real quick, like, and you get them off the hook, and they'll sit there and kind of chatter at you. But they're kind of like a little catfish. They'll sit on the bottom. They don't really do too much.
Are you gonna share the sound with us, or
We're very
no.
auditory learners.
Absolutely not.
okay?
Is it something that they use to like communicate, or is that a defense?
Probably it's probably more of a defense mechanism because you're sitting there holding them, and they're just like, put me down. If I make this weird noise, can you just put me down and put me back in the water so I can live?
That's
Okay.
adorable. I didn't know.
I did not know
I
that.
got a million
Oh, so
questions
cool.
now. Do fish have can they make
They have vocal
sounds?
cords and-
Do fish make? Okay, we'll explore that later. Okay,
Catfish
stay on top.
make sounds.
Well, obviously,
Huh.
we learned
Yeah.
something new tonight. Thanks, Julie. Who's next? Favorite fish, and tell us about their adaptations, or what makes.
I'll go
it-
next.
All right.
So my favorite fish is the humble bluegill. So, so kind of, I started doing some of my work on bluegill in the Sandhills and the Valentine National Wildlife Refuge, and bluegill have this really cool whole social dimension that most people don't even know about when they go to their pond or their lake. It's almost like a lek, like a prairie chicken, where they build these nests and the biggest male's right in the middle and they're fighting for spots. So there's whole social, dominance where the biggest male gets the best nesting spot because that's the best spot, from predators.
Yeah.
Have some other social domain, some really cool adaptations where we call sneaker males, where you'll have males, male bluegill will make themselves look like a female, and then right when they're starting to spawn, will sneak in and fertilize the eggs instead. So
Holy
so cool.
smokes.
so that's how these little male bluegill can compete with the big, bull bluegill in the middle of the nest. So it's a fish that it's pretty much everywhere, right?
Right.
People don't know about this really cool social hierarchy and this whole thing behind it.
I have just like two quick thoughts on that. That's super cool, Chris. Thanks for sharing. Number one, I really wish I could see like their Tinder profile of each of those, the big male and the sneaker fish. That would be cool. Number two is, why is everyone so excited about like prairie chicken legs? Why aren't people going and watching this?
Like
This is pretty
underwater
cool.
blinds.
Like, do we need to set up
Yeah.
a watchable wall?
Like literally, I was on a pond today in Fort Robinson, and there's bluegills spawning right by shore. The males
Yeah.
a nest, and they swim in circles right by shore. They usually make a little sand or gravel net. Daryl can tell you more about that. So
Incredible.
Interesting.
Look at all that's happening underwater that we just need to pay
Aquatic
attention to.
wonders.
Aquatic wonders.
Aquatic wonders.
Amazing. Daryl or Brian, go for it.
That's a go. Brian.
We're trying to wait each other out.
I see that.
I hate this question because I hate picking one.
Okay, pick
That's fair.
one for tonight. What's your favorite tonight? How about that?
Well, I can tell you lots of reasons that I like lots of different species of fish. Big fish, big bad predator fish, and I love to fish. Okay, so big fish turn me on, and I love our big predators. Things like flathead catfish, muskies are some of the biggest apex predators we have in Nebraska. Muskies are well known. They're some of the biggest predators in North America. They're big fish. They got a big mouth full of literally razor sharp teeth.
Oh,
And they are made for eating other live creatures, mostly other fish. But it's just cool to know. I mean, they're like a wolf. It's cool to know that those apex predators are out there.
right.
It makes the wild more wild, if you will, knowing that
Yeah.
there's some of those big predators swimming around out there. And sometimes you might even catch one on the end of your line.
I love that perspective, Daryl. Thanks for sharing that.
The
They're like the
wolves.
wolves of
The wolf-like creatures of the ocean. Of the
Absolutely.
Nebraska.
That's awesome.
All right, Brian, how about you?
Well, I'm surprised Daryl didn't take it, but I mean, without a doubt, walleye are probably my favorite species. It's what I like to fish for. It's what I spend 6 months of the year rearing.
I'm wearing the shirt, Brian.
There you go. I mean, they're just a cool fish that we do a lot with. And when I'm not at work doing stuff with them, I like to be trying to catch them. So
Cool. So you don't get sick of them at work rearing them? That's pretty.
not very
pretty
often.
challenge.
There was a few days this year we crossed the line. It was a long year, but no, I mean, if you
That's
don't
great.
enjoy what I do, then
Obviously, you're passionate. I really quick, can I share mine?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I spent about a year and a half working at the SRAM Education Center, the SRAM Aquarium. And so I got to know intimately all these incredible fish because they're all there. It's like,
Yeah.
it's our only native freshwater aquarium in
Yeah.
Nebraska if you want to see cool fish. Anyways, I spent a lot of time just staring at the mad tom. Am I saying that right? Anyone? Okay.
Tadpole mad tom.
Yeah, it's a mad tom. So it's like basically it looks like a catfish because it is a type of catfish, but it's this big and it's so cool. And I'd feed it a worm like every weekend.
Oh, that is cool.
They look like a miniature catfish. They're fully grown. They're super cute. Look them up if you haven't heard of them. Do you have a favorite or are we moving on?
I mean, I love sturgeon. I just love their
That's fair.
noses, and they're like these dinosaur primitive
Absolutely.
fishes, and I'm a huge dinosaur geek. So
Mhm.
like,
That's fair. That checks out.
that's my thing.
That's cool. I love it.
So as we're kind of been talking about all these characteristics of our fish and our non-game fish that we have, that's kind of our focus tonight. Do we have any fish in Nebraska that are endangered or threatened and then how do we know that they're endangered or threatened? Do we monitor them? What does fish conservation look like in Nebraska?
Yes, we have some threatened endangered species in the state. You can find probably the best place for finding information on that is our website, outdoornebraska.gov or .org. Either one will get you there, and you can look at threatened and endangered species, and you can see the fish that are listed there. And some of them are small, and some of them are not so small.
Like our pallid sturgeon is probably our largest one. Is that correct, Daryl?
Lake sturgeon's also state listed.
That's
and
true. Yeah.
I'd argue it's even bigger than a pallid sturgeon, but yeah, those are both big fish.
Daryl, I'm going to ask you a kind of a weird personal question here. Are you on TikTok? I think you would like TikTok as far as all the fish that I watch. I don't know. I think of you when
Is there a
when I
lot of
see
fish
those.
TikToks? Is there
I
fish
mean,
content?
the algorithm, like when you see one, you know, you watch it, it comes up with more.
Your algorithm is just pure nature nerd, isn't it?
Yeah, and like some dog videos. But
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
I don't know. I think about that, and there's always the sturgeon videos.
Oh,
So
cool.
That's what
Daryl,
Side
just maybe a
note here.
maybe a new avenue for you, you know, just keep
your
Well,
education. Start our
exactly.
TikTok.
Yeah, never too old.
That's
Mhm.
true.
Well, so we know a lot about our game fish in Nebraska. They're raised in Nebraska hatcheries, and I think there are some folks here tonight who can speak to that a bit. A lot of people don't know that the whole cycle of fish recreation in Nebraska and how important hatcheries are.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty
unless you're in
incredible.
that area and you maybe go on a field trip, like
Right.
you know, these eastern Nebraska people,
Yeah.
our urban population doesn't know about that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So can you, either of you, tell us more about the role hatcheries play in our fish populations in Nebraska? What does that look like on a big picture, big scale view?
Well, I mean, if you, in hatcheries this past year, we were trying to raise 24 different species of fish
Wow.
for stocking. Some of those maybe only in 1 or 2 lakes, and some of them maybe in 100 lakes. So there's a lot of variability in that.
And that's not at each hatchery, is it? It's not 24 species at each hatchery.
No,
Okay.
no. We've got a couple of facilities that raise exclusively trout. There's what we had 3 species of trout, I believe, this year. Rainbows being the most. Had like 288,000 trout to raise this year. We raised 25,000 brook trout, which were 3 inches. Most of the fish are raised to 10 inches. It's like 96,000 pounds of trout we should have stocked in Nebraska waters this year. Then we've got the North Platte and Calamus facilities that raise a lot of warm water, and also Valentine. I just wrote down a few things that I thought might be of interest. This year, we hope to stock 202,000 catfish. That'll all be 10 inches for the most part. It's like 65,000 pounds of catfish we'll stock.
Wow.
Couple 100,000 largemouth walleye, like I said, which is one of our big species at both North Platte and Calamus.
Just a second.
What's that? We took 1,084 quarts of walleye eggs this year to meet the number of eggs we needed. Which,
wow.
when you put that in perspective, I mean, that's 270 gallons of walleye eggs we took to get to where we needed to be. Like 135 million eggs, and we had 95 million fry roughly out of that.
Fry, and fry for non-fish nerds or soon to be fish nerds. What are fry?
Little tiny guys. These were
little babies.
1 to 4, smaller than that even. I mean,
little babies.
150,000 of them in a quart. If you put 150,000 in a quart measuring cup, you could fill it. That's how small they are.
Incredible.
Roughly.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, that gives you an idea of, we do play a huge impact on the game fish in Nebraska, without a doubt.
Is Nebraska kind of on the map for this? And you might not have the answer, but this is just making me think of how incredible our production is in Nebraska. Is it kind of on the map in our, in the country for this kind of production, or do other states have this much? Like, what does that look like?
We probably take close to as many eggs as anybody in the country. The state of New York, I know, used to take a lot of walleye eggs. I mean, we deal with other states. We give 40 million walleye eggs away to other states.
Wow. We're powerhouse.
In return for those, we get catfish or wipers or something in return, because we have access to walleye populations that are, I don't know, they don't compare to anything else in the country, do they, Daryl? I mean, maybe Lake Erie, but other than that, our walleye they're king in this state, and they're good, and we can take a lot of eggs with very little effort. When I say very little effort, that's not really right, but
probably
it doesn't take us near as many days. I mean, I know other states that go for 4 weeks on walleye spawn and take 50 million eggs, and we go for 8 days and take 150 million.
Wow.
Wow, I had no idea.
Well, we pick our days.
And it's crazy because a lot of people think Nebraska is just a prairie state, and we have a lot of grasslands, but like we're high up as far as fish numbers. We have a lot of tributaries, and we have a lot of river miles and lakes and streams, and it's crazy to think we have that many fish. So
I heard during the 2019 flood, and I think I fact checked it back then, but I should fact check it again. But I did hear something that apparently Nebraska has the most river miles of any state. Was that true?
I don't
I
know.
will check this.
I have a friend at NDEE and he apparently says it's not true.
Okay,
But that's
It's
what it
up
says on
there.
our website,
it's up there.
like our state website.
Okay,
So,
well, maybe
I don't
we
know.
should- we'll look into that.
Anyway, one of the things that we also like to talk about is we kind of joked about watchable wildlife and watching for fish. And there's people that go bird watching. There's people that go out and look for snakes and go out and look for butterflies. Is there a way to like watch for fish, or like if they don't want to necessarily like go catch fish? Like Chris, you said that the bluegill today at Fort Robinson, you could see them, they're right there. Is there good places just to go look for fish if you don't necessarily want to catch them? Or is that
Daryl
like
might
good?
be a good one to ask for that, but yeah, a lot of these, smaller lakes and stuff, if it's, fairly clear with vegetation, like we see these, these bluegill making these spawning beds. So, and one thing when I worked in Arizona, one thing we were trying to push is, and I do not know where you would do it in the state, but we used to snorkel in some of our streams to see some of our little, small bodied fish. So
Are those like more sandhill lakes, I'm guessing? Because
I would guess, yeah, these same
People
lakes are
snorkel.
very
In
clear, so.
here in Nebraska, there's a lot of snorkeling in the sand pit lakes along
Yeah.
the rivers.
like, I'm not gonna go watch for fish in the Missouri River because I
That would be
can't do anything.
right. That's
But
right. Maybe the sand.
I don't know, Daryl, is there a place to go to watch fish?
Well,
It's a hatchery.
that's the challenge with watching fish is they're below the surface of the water. And we just can't see down there like we can, in the terrestrial where we can go watch birds or, even look for reptiles or whatever. So you're limited to where we have clean water, clear water. You mentioned the sand pits. That's probably one of the most popular areas for some of the snorkeling and scuba diving. Box Butte Reservoir, clear out in the Panhandle, is another popular spot for snorkeling and scuba diving. Some at Lake McConaughey, but even there, you're not going to have feet and feet of visibility. You may be a couple feet, maybe 4 or 5 feet under the best conditions. So that's the real problem with watching fish. Now, when the bluegills are spawning, they're almost always shallow, and you can find them in waters where you can see them, you can watch them. Our trout streams, a lot of those are clear enough and shallow enough that you can, do some fish watching there too. Although the trout tend to be pretty spooky in those streams. So, if you're a little bit noisy or, drop something on the bank, the trout are there, but they're hiding from you and you can't see them anymore. So you have to pick and choose your places. There's some spots where you can watch fish. Get a pair of polarized sunglasses. Something that'll cut the glare will help you see fish too, and maybe see a little bit further into the water than you would expect.
Are there
good tips?
Yeah. Are there certain times of the year that are better to watch fish, like when they're spawning or
Sure.
early in the year?
Times of the year when they're likely to be shallows that were your best bet. And I would say that's mostly spring on into summer, late or mid and late summer. They tend to move deep again. Plus then we have our waters tend to be a little bit more turbid during the summer. You get things like algae blooms, or the vegetation the aquatic vegetation is at its peak, which makes it harder to see. And then the fall again, maybe for a short time, you might see some movement back into shallow water. Maybe some waters clear up a bit in the fall would be another good time. Winter would be a great time. We have clean water but it's underneath the ice. So, but you can drill a hole and look down the ice and see fish sometimes.
That's cool. That's very neat. Yeah.
So kind of getting towards the end here, I want to kind of ask about, the big picture stuff of why people should care about these critters. And one question we have is, what's the biggest challenge Nebraska's fish face in the future? Or what's a challenge that you can think of? In any, yeah, go ahead.
Water. That's the simple answer. Do we have water? Your comment about the miles of streams in Nebraska. I believe that is accurate, except
Okay.
if we went back and looked today, how many miles of those stream miles actually flow more than 1 or 2 days a year? And I think it'd make you cry if you realized how many hundreds of miles of stream area that are really not streams, they're dry riverbeds now.
So water in terms of both quality, it sounds like. What about quantity of water?
Quality and quantity, I mean, they kind of go hand in hand. If we have ample water, we typically have good water quality. As rivers and streams go down in volume, you know, there's places in the state, the northern sandhills, where the alkalinity goes up, where fish can't live. If we can fill those back up, they're alkaline still, but they produce brine shrimp like crazy, and fish thrive till or no end. I mean, or not brine shrimps, freshwater shrimp, excuse me. But you know, it's yeah, water quality and quantity kind of go hand in hand.
That's excellent. Thank you. And what, anybody else comment on?
Well, I think I would be remiss if I did not mention the role that invasive species
Let's hear it.
face that you know, it's you know, it's through different fronts. You know, we have our Asian, the carp, the silver, the carp, they're not called, and you know, they're a hindrance because they take up the biomass. They pretty much ecosystem from the bottom up. And of course, as Monica, you saw up in Ponca, that they can be kind of a hazard to humans when they jump out of the water.
Hey,
We had a couple people at a workshop, teacher workshop, go kayaking and got hit in the face by a couple of Asian carp.
Yeah, so you know, and that's, you know, that's part of it. You know, with zebra mussels too, it pretty much starves the water from the bottom up, and you know, it clogs intake pipes, and that reduces flow. I mean, there's all kinds of things, and new invasive species too that are being able to take root because of climate change and things like that. So you know, invasive species, I think, you know, Brian's totally right. Waters, you know, fish need water to live.
Yep.
So, you know, and this is just something else, you know, with invasive species, it's going to be more and more of a problem moving forward. So that's why we are trying with the program to do that.
Yeah, kind of compounding problem too. What about how will climate change affect our fish population in Nebraska, or has it affected it already, or anything kind of from that? Is that a challenge, or even in our fish production, or anything like that?
Brian, we were talking a little before we started here, but you said the heat has really affected a lot of the hatcheries and the fish. How is that gonna change?
I mean, it all ties together. I mean, with the heat that we're having and the water, the consumption that's going on from some of our major reservoirs right now for irrigation and so forth, and lack of runoff we're seeing coming from the mountains into streams like or lakes like McConaughey, which feed the whole Platte Valley system. I mean, you know, is this little stretch climate change, or is it just one of those blips in history? I'm not going to get into that. It doesn't make any difference, but drought does affect water, and water affects fish. And Chris is 100% right. Fish need more than water, but if you don't have water, none of the rest of it matters at all. So it's going to have a big impact. I mean, McConaughey is how many feet lower today than it was 3 years ago? I mean, 40, I don't know what it is.
Oh, wow.
I mean, things are changing and changing rapidly. And, you know, at the end of the year, I guess we see where we stand and we adjust our stocking rates based on what we have left for water. And you hope you maintain good quality, and Chris keeps all the bad critters out and the bad veg out. And, you know, it's very complicated.
Sounds like it's a collective effort, and it sounds like especially the fish folks in Nebraska have to keep, you know, being flexible and adaptive as things do change. Which takes a lot.
And the one thing that people got to realize, we do a lot of things at a lot of lakes in the state. The one thing we hardly have any control over is water in the lake. Why don't you keep more water in McConaughey, or why don't you keep more water in Harlan County? We don't get to decide that part of the game.
You can't just go like this and make
Just, you know, stick the hose in, and
That doesn't even work at home. I mean, come on, you know, it sure doesn't work with them, but you know, you do the best you can with the resource we have out there, and we've got some great fisheries in the States. So
oh yeah, go ahead.
Keep this in mind too. We live in the Great Plains, and it is a land of extremes. And we've been through dry spells before, we will again, and we've been through wet spells before, and we will again. So, Brian and I have been around this outfit for 30 years. Man, we've seen it all. We've seen it dry, we've seen it wet, and our fish populations are dynamic because of that. They're always changing. There's ups and downs, and sometimes the best we can do is just go along for the ride.
That's a good point, Daryl. Yeah, very good. So since we've kind of been talking about the non-game fish tonight, that was kind of our goal for this program, is those kind of the fish that we don't see and don't hear a lot about. If you can't catch them, if you can't really find them or eat them, why should we really care about those non-game fish in Nebraska?
I'll answer, I guess.
Yeah, go for
Yeah,
it, Julie.
please.
Since I haven't talked. For the most part, they feed the game fish.
Mm.
A lot of it is their cycle and their place in the system is to be food for the bigger fish. Because big fish eat little fish and little fish eat other little fish, and then those little fish eat the zooplankton and the bugs and the aquatic species that are there that don't necessarily, like the dragonfly larvae that we don't see until they, emerge and be beautiful. So they are there for a purpose, even though we don't catch them. They're there for food, for other fish to catch.
Part of the whole system,
Yep.
sounds like. Yeah.
And I think there's some intrinsic value in that they're there. In Arizona and Grand Canyon, where with Razorback sucker and Bonny-tailed chub, where people just want it should be a trout fishery now. They're endangered. Who cares? The things. Well, I think we have some sort of responsibility, and Daryl can talk about with making sure we leave this the best we can. Where it's our fault that they're that way. You know what I mean? So, I think there's some value in all of that. And, just like Julie said, it's all part of the ecosystem, right? It all ties back together where, bugs get eaten this, and, maybe a flycatcher gets this, or a kingfisher gets this fish, it all together. So
It's not just about the fish. Like you said, it's the whole ecosystem. It's the birds, it's the reptiles, it's the mammals, it's the bugs and the dragonflies and everything. So yes, I think that's something that people have sometimes a hard time remembering, and they focus on not just fish people, but when you focus on a single species, it's hard to remember. You've got to think about
The whole system.
everything. Yes.
Very cool. That's fantastic.
Well, I think the more you learn about them, the more of a fish nerd you become.
Yeah.
The more you realize each one of those species is special in their own little way. There's something neat about every one of them, from the littlest to the biggest. And we should do what we can to be good stewards of all of them.
Okay, sweet. And on that note, Daryl, I want to show folks, or at least tell people about a really cool resource if you are just getting into being a fish nerd. This is one of the best. When I worked at SRAM, it was called the Fish Bible of Nebraska. So it's, I don't know if you
Daryl
guys
has it.
Daryl
Yeah,
has it
look
too.
at that.
Sweet. Oh my God. Check this is so
Sits
nerd.
right next to
I
me
love
on my
it.
desk all the time.
Yeah, it's called the Fishes of Nebraska. And it was produced here at University of Nebraska with some UNL researchers. And so when we email everyone after that tomorrow, we'll include a link or the title to this if you want to be a fish nerd, if you want.
Yeah,
If you want to be
absolutely.
like Daryl or the other fish nerds and have it ready to go. So there we go. It seems like we have some good questions from our audience. Should we go through those a little bit?
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Okay.
I've been answering some, sorry guys.
Yes,
Oh, thank you, Julie.
No,
Thank
that's
you.
great.
Go to the top just to be sure we're not missing anyone.
Thanks, Julie. You answered that question about
Yeah, someone
A
asked
river
if I
fish.
take a river fish, put it into a lake fish or a lake, would it survive? Julie answered that.
someone had asked, Mark had asked, when we were talking about our favorite fish species, rock bass have always fascinated me. In my opinion, they have some really neat patterns that seem to change with their surroundings and lines that will show in their red eyes. What special adaptations might they have, and what is their kind of niche in the ecosystem?
First of all, Mark, thank you for being so observant. That's pretty cool. Those are good
Yeah.
observations that you made.
Would you guys believe I played around with rock bass in a science independent study course way back when I was in high school?
No way.
Yeah, and they do have some unique coloration, and that coloration kind of changes in response to social interactions again.
Wow.
So I think that's part of the coloration of the rock bass, is that indicates, dominance A lot of the color changes in fish indicate reproductive status too. I don't know if there's anything special about the red color of the eye or not, other than it's a color, and we know fish can see colors. And so there's probably some communication, social status based on those colors and the changing of those colors.
Fascinating.
That is
How
really
cool.
cool, like
It's so
social.
cool.
Yeah.
So cool that Mark observed it. I know when I get a little angry, my eyes get a little greener. I don't know if it's because I'm Irish. So it's like eye communication thing? That's fascinating.
Could be.
Mhm.
Someone had also asked, and I'm not sure about this, are there cameras up at Gavin's Point Dam where people can, I'm guessing kind of like a live cam? Is that what you're thinking, Midge, or something? I don't know if any of you know.
I don't think there is right now.
Okay.
We can
So,
look into it. If we do find it,
Yes.
we'll send it in that email. So thanks for bringing it up.
but Gavin's, the Point Dam, like I was thinking about earlier, is actually a place to watch fish.
Oh, okay.
The paddlefish stack up there and you see their fins come up like sharks. There's that big head, the carp there that they're invasive. You see
Yeah.
of those.
They're sharp.
You can walk down and see some gar and things like that. So that's another place you can see some other fish. I just thought of that when we talked about Gavin's Point. So
Huh.
That's very
Yeah.
good.
That's a good one, Chris, and a great diversity there too. On the Missouri River, you don't know what you might see there.
Is that also a great place to find those rusty crayfish, right? I know those invasive.
those invasive rusty, the crayfish are there down below Gavin's Point Dam for sure. So
You get the whole range of every different kind.
you get everything, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think, Julie, thank you for asking, someone asked, where's the closest fish hatchery to Omaha? Is it open to the public? And someone had mentioned, Julie mentioned the Grove Hatchery in Royal, Nebraska. So
Yeah. Schramm was the first hatchery of Nebraska. It stopped operation in like the 1970s, but there is a historical hatchery there. You can go check it out. It's pretty cool. And it's near Gretna, and they have this incredible, like I said, this aquarium now where it's not a hatchery, but you can go and see amazing fish.
yes.
So we can put that in the email too.
Yes, we
Yeah.
can. And like Amber keeps mentioning, we have this email. So everyone that registered tonight, whether they're here or not, they will get an email from us saying like the this recording that we're going to put on is going to be on our YouTube channel. And then we will also be posting some resources that our biologists and we've mentioned throughout tonight as well. So if you're trying to write things down or remember things, we will do our best in getting all that information to you and links that we'll send out in an email probably by tomorrow at noon or something like that. So
yeah, anywhere else that you all can think of as far as resources go to learn more from Nebraska Game Parks? Daryl, is there like a go-to site or anything like that?
Well, other than what I already mentioned, our outdoornebraska.gov or .org, we got a lot of information there on the fishing page. Species of fish, where they're located, some identification tools. Where public waters, there's a whole variety of information there. Let me mention one thing. Grove is the closest hatchery to eastern end of the state. However, know this, right now it's closed to the public during the hottest part of the year. It's a little more stressful on those trout. So we've reduced the public access during the summer months. So that doesn't place even more stress on those trout. So if you want to go up and see Grove, probably be best to wait till this fall sometime.
thanks for mentioning that, Daryl. We obviously had no idea. I'm just writing some stuff down. I don't want to forget to send all that to you. So, all right. Any kind of like closing? We got about 4 minutes or so from any of our biologists, or if you have any questions that keep coming in. Anything that you guys just kind of want to close with?
Yeah,
or...
if you had 2 minutes of time with everyone in Nebraska, so this is your soapbox, what would you want them to know about fish in Nebraska? What's your soapbox message?
Okay, I'm gonna go first.
Okay.
Clean, drain, dry. So we need the public's help. So I can see Daryl giggling over there. Nebraska Game Parks only has one full-time AIS person. So for instance, these the silver and the big head, the carp, they're down below Gavin's Point Dam. The only way they're going to move anywhere is if people do move them, and we have had people move them. So
Oh, geez.
the part about being smart where you get your bait and making sure your boat or your water, the craft is clean, drained, and dried before you get one water body from another. So,
Okay.
you know, to be good stewards of that. So, you know, just so we, you know, we keep our fish healthy, you know, both our native and our game fish. So, anyway, that's
good.
Daryl knew I had to get that in with the
Yeah.
dry. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else, your soapbox, if you could have the ear of everyone in Nebraska.
Yes, I'd encourage everybody to get out and enjoy the resource and pick up behind themselves. And if you got time, pick up a little for the other people that didn't bother to pick up behind
Oh,
themselves.
yeah, I like that, Brian.
You know, we got some really cool resources, and it'd be really nice to see them not littered up and taken care of like they deserve to be. And one other thing I want to throw out there, and maybe you mentioned it on this before, we put together a really cool walleye spawning video. It's on YouTube. Walleye Spawn Nebraska 2022, I think will get you on YouTube search. We'll get you that video. It's 6 or 8 minutes long. Nick and Grace come out and spend a lot of time with us getting that put together. It's a really cool video. And I think most of you, if you've listened through all this, you'd love the video.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Brian. We'll definitely link that tomorrow
Yes,
in our
we will.
resources. That's excellent. Anybody else on your soapbox?
Anybody hear me? You got a question, Arthur?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead before we're out of time.
Where's you get the guys get those books at? That one book that's like university.
Oh yeah. I think it's on, you can buy it on Amazon. I think I got mine at the university bookstore, but I think they
Okay.
are on Amazon or any bookstore.
They're on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yep.
How much?
Oh,
They're a little
Oh.
pricey, I think, but I mean, it's a great resource. It's the only one like we have in Nebraska. And I will link the Amazon link to the
Okay.
email as well. If you'll get that email tomorrow, I can definitely
Okay.
look for you.
And I have another question for you guys. Do
Okay.
you guys have fishing tournaments coming up this year?
We have a list of all the registered fishing tournaments on our website. So if you go to the fishing page and look under fishing events,
Okay.
there's a list and there's dozens of them registered.
And you want you
at
guys to
various
send me the
summer.
link?
Yeah, I can link
Or
that
next
onto
year?
the email as well, or if Daryl wanted to put it in the chat or something.
Sure. Yep.
Yep, I can certainly do that as well.
That'll help me out at least, because I got some couple of friends that want to do like a fishing tournament this year.
a good way to enjoy the fish of Nebraska. it
Yeah,
sounds like.
introduce people to fish.
Because plus I have a fishing t-shirt, like the 100-year anniversary t-shirt from you guys.
That's excellent. Awesome.
Plus I know one of your retired game and park rangers too. Name's Dolan Harvey.
Yeah.
He was doing it for 35 years and his wife did it for 45 years in turn.
Excellent. That's so cool. Thank you so much, Arthur. Julie or Daryl, do you have one last your soapbox for Nebraskans if you want to get it out? If
Go
not,
fish.
I like it. Okay.
Sounds good. All right, well, I think we're out of time, everyone, but I think, if you're interested, we'll also link this into our email as well. Our next Nature Nerd Night is going to be in August, and I think it's on, is it disease?
I think so.
Diseases, rabies and zoonotic diseases.
Zoonotic diseases. No one's ever heard of that before.
Yeah,
right?
pneumonia in our bighorn sheep species we're going to be talking about. So lots of cool stuff, but join us next time for, disease,
Yeah.
because we're not living in
Disease
that world
ecology.
right now.
Mhm.
Yes, disease
We're
ecology.
far enough
So
away a little bit. Maybe.
Okay.
What's the next one, ladies?
it will be the third Tuesday of the month, and I think that is the 16th, August 16th. We will go ahead and link the registration into the email as well. So
This year date, right?
yes, yep.
Mhm.
August
Okay.
16th of 2022. We'll have them all the way through November. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us. We hope
Thanks
you
so
learned
Thanks,
some stuff.
ladies.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Now.
Thank you again.
Thanks to our speakers.
Bye,
too.
everyone.
Bye.